Ida for kicking my sister out of my wedding after she criticized my— Okay, I 27F need some perspective here because I'm genuinely torn about what happened, and I'm wondering if I overreacted. So, I've been engaged to my fiancée 30M for about a year now. We've been planning our wedding for months, and I've been really excited about it. I always dreamed of having a wedding that felt personal and unique to us, so I've put a lot of thought into everything, from the venue to the food to the dress. Now, here's the issue. My sister, Lena 25F, and I have always had a somewhat complicated relationship. She's never been the most supportive, and there's a bit of jealousy there. She's always been the life of the party type, and I've always felt like I'm the quieter, more reserved one. I've learned to live with it, but it can still sting sometimes. A couple of days ago, I finally got my wedding dress after trying on dozens of them. It's a bit unconventional. It's a vintage lace dress, with a high neckline and long sleeves. It's definitely not the typical strapless, sparkly gown that many people go for, but I absolutely love it. It feels like me. It's elegant, classy, and understated. When I showed it to Lena, she didn't hold back. She said, "That's your dress? It looks like something my grandmother would wear." She then went on to say that it was too old-fashioned and not flattering for someone your age. Honestly, it stung. I tried to laugh it off, but I could tell she didn't mean it as a joke. I told her that I loved the dress, and it was exactly what I wanted, but she continued to make snide comments about it being too boring and not what anyone would expect from a wedding dress. I didn't know what to say at that point, so I just told her I didn't appreciate her negativity and that she could keep her opinions to herself. Then, the situation escalated. She demanded to know what was wrong with her being honest with me, and I ended up telling her that I didn't need her toxic attitude at my wedding. I told her that if she couldn't be supportive, then maybe she shouldn't come to the wedding at all. She was shocked and hurt by my reaction, and now she's not speaking to me. My mom is upset, saying I overreacted and should have just let it go, but I feel like my wedding day is supposed to be about me and what makes me happy. I don't want anyone making me feel bad about my choices, especially my sister. So, Reddit, Ida for kicking my sister out of my wedding over her comments about my dress? Not mine BTW. Ida for leaving my boyfriend stranded at a wedding because he wouldn't. So this happened last weekend, and I need some perspective. My boyfriend Jake 28M and I 26F have been together for a little over a year. He's funny, outgoing, and can make friends with anyone. Normally, I love that about him, but sometimes, his jokes go too far, especially when they're at my expense. I've told him before that there are certain things I don't find funny, and he'll say he understands, but then he does it again anyway. Anyway, we were invited to my friend Laura's wedding. I was really excited because Laura and I have been friends since college, and I knew this was going to be a beautiful event. I spent a lot of time picking out a dress, getting my hair done, and just feeling good about myself. The moment we got there, Jake started in on me. It started small, just teasing me about how much effort I put into my outfit, saying stuff like, "Wow, hope the bride isn't mad you're trying to outshine her." Okay, whatever. I brushed it off, but then, at the reception, he kept tramping it up. Every time we talked to someone, he'd make a joke at my expense. Things like, "Oh, she doesn't dance unless she's had at least 3 drinks first. Careful asking her about work, she'll talk your ear off about boring marketing stuff. She spent 2 hours getting ready, and this is the result." At first, I laughed it off, but after a while, I got really fed up. I pulled him aside and told him to cut it out. He rolled his eyes and said, "Relax, it's just jokes. Everyone thinks it's funny." So I decided I was done. I grabbed my purse, went up to him, and said, "Okay, since you love joking around so much, here's one, find your own way home." Then I left. I drove myself home and ignored his texts and calls the whole way. He ended up having to get an Uber, which was expensive since the venue was pretty far out. When he finally got home, he was furious. He said I embarrassed him by overreacting and making a scene. I told him he embarrassed me the entire night and that I wasn't going to sit there and take it. Some of my friends are on my side, but a few said I shouldn't have left him stranded and should have just talked to him again. Jake thinks I was being dramatic and that I need to learn to take a joke. So, Reddit, Ida for leaving him at the wedding? Not mine BTW. Ida for not wanting to attend my best friend's wedding after Okay, so here's the situation. My 28F best friend, Sarah 29F, and I have known each other since college. We've always been super close, and we've been through a lot together, so when she told me she was getting married, I was ecstatic for her. But there's one small problem. The person she's marrying, Jake 31M, is someone I used to date. Now, I'm not talking about a casual fling. We were together for almost 2 years, and we had a pretty serious relationship. Things ended pretty badly. Jake and I broke up about 4 years ago after I found out he was cheating on me. I had to pick up the pieces of my life and move on, and I've been doing just fine since then. I didn't mind that Sarah and Jake became friends, since they met during our college years. What I didn't know, though, was that they were getting closer after my breakup with Jake. She never mentioned anything about their growing friendship until recently, when she casually mentioned that she and Jake had been talking about getting married. When I asked her how long they'd been talking, she admitted that they'd been seeing each other for almost a year. I was honestly shocked. I feel betrayed because, in my mind, that's crossing a line. I know that technically, Jake is free to date whoever he wants, but I feel like she should have told me sooner, or at least asked if it was okay to date him after everything that happened. I've told Sarah that I'm not comfortable attending the wedding. She's upset, saying I'm being petty and should be happy for her, but I just can't get past the idea that she's marrying the guy who hurt me so deeply, and it feels like a betrayal in itself. I'm torn because she's my best friend, but at the same time, I don't know how I can be okay with this. So, Reddit, AITA for not wanting to go to the wedding? Or am I just being overdramatic? Not mine BTW. Fiction. June 2025. Black Brits being targeted by June 2025. SOCA's cybersecurity chief has warned that Black Brits are more likely to be targeted by African scammers exploiting a real-life event. Tom Goodstoke, chief of cybersecurity at the UK's Serious Organised Crime Agency, the equivalent of Britain's FBI, says scammers based in East African countries as well as South Africa, Zimbabwe and Romania, an EU member state, are targeting Brits via the Nigerian Tsunami Relief Charity, a fake charity exploiting the flooding which affected coastal Nigeria, Togo and Benin last month. Whilst serious flooding did indeed affect hundreds of thousands, the fake charity used fake news reels and fake news stories to claim that a huge undersea earthquake had struck near the coast of West Africa, causing a huge tsunami and displacing millions in the process. The charity claimed it needed funding to build shelter for 600,000 internally displaced Nigerians and extra funds for supplies and food and baby food. In reality, flooding had affected part of the West African coastline but was nowhere near as serious as what the fake charity was claiming. Goodstoke said, the scammers are based in a number of African countries, including Somalia, Kenya, Eritrea, Ethiopia and even South Africa, Zimbabwe and one EU member state, Romania. The scammers are seeking out and targeting Black Brits, particularly those who believe they have Nigerian ancestry or who actually do. The scammers are also targeting elderly white Brits and attempting to exploit their generosity and vulnerability. We would urge all Brits, particularly Black Brits of African descent or self-declared African descent, self-identifying African descendants, to remain vigilant and not donate to this fake charity or other charities attempting to exploit the flooding which affected Nigeria, Togo and Benin last month. Any individual who has been affected by this or who has further information regarding the Nigerian Tsunami Relief Charity or other fake African charities should contact SOCA's specially set up cybersecurity hotline on fecal vomiting or food poisoning. It was earlier this year. I just sat my exams. It was an essay and timed exam. I got an E for that essay BTW. Which is like almost a fail but still a fail. What the absolute hell does that mean? Anyway, after exams I treated myself to some well-deserved drinks. I'd put a lot of study time into that second exam, to which I received an A. It was a good night. I drank too much too fast as always and passed out early. I had work the next day. The day went well. But it was the next day that things went wrong. I ordered a toastie for lunch. I work at a food establishment. It was a chicken mayo and cheese on white bread toasted. Or was meant to be. The toastie was undercooked but I still ate it. Mistake. I finished work. Honestly, I felt fine. I went home. Then I was met with an immediate feeling of tiredness. So I took a nap. About an hour gone by. I woke up and I was in agony. I could barely move. I was in so much pain. I didn't know what to do. I thought I was dying. I was so cold but sweating at the same time. My electric blanket was on. I turned it off. The chicken mayo cheese on white bread toasted popped into my head. Why did I eat that? It was undercooked. My boss had undercooked my toastie. I was furious. I started graphically thinking about the toastie, the texture, the color. It was white supremacy. I started thinking about racial intolerance. I was combining visuals nobody should. I raced to the toilet and spewed. Thank God. I continued to spew. But it wasn't a spew I was familiar with. I was colorless. I brought my basin to my bed in case I would have to spew again, and I did. Again the spew was clear. It had an alcohol flavor to it. It smelled clean. Amongst the clear liquid was what looked like mints. I retraced my steps in terms of food but there was nothing I remembered eating that resembled that. I was scared. Was this fecal vomiting? Was this coffee ground? Was this food or alcohol poisoning? All I know is that I was playing the song Clink by Death Grips in my head from the ex-military album that they removed from Spotify. I was cool. I was palliative. I accepted the worst and phoned the emergency services. As there was no blood present, I was redirected to the non-emergency helpline. Enough was enough. I decided I wouldn't phone. I would save myself. I continued to drink water so that I would always have something to throw up. I was drinking milk on and off to settle my stomach and replenish the gut flora in my appendix as I was shitting my spine out. And it was not pretty. It was CPTSD. I was reminded of the toasty, the smell. I wept. Why this? Why now? I plugged my nose with tissues. It was trauma-informed. Thankfully it was a mild case of food poisoning, I think. I was bedbound for a day, nauseous, feverish, resentful. I had only just finished my exams. And what had I gotten as reward but mild food poisoning? Thankfully the vomiting stopped later that evening. I allowed myself to sleep off the symptoms. I nursed myself slowly back to health. It would be okay. Got called weird for not being interested in boys dating. This happened a few years ago. I just wanted to post it somewhere. It started back in 2019 when I had just started high school at age 11 where I'm from. Me and my friend had somehow managed to form a friend group with 3 other girls, so there was 5 of us. About a week into the new school year, one of my friends pointed out a boy she thought was attractive and asked for our opinion on him. 2 others agreed with her while me and the other girl didn't have an opinion on him. She suggested it was probably because we hadn't got our first period yet, which was a conversation we had the week before for some reason, so I didn't think anything of it. By the time schools were open again after civil, they were all talking about boys and crushes, but I still wasn't interested in them. This is when they started calling me weird and different for not liking boys. They would often ask each other about their crushes and they would giggle and stuff. I kinda felt left out. I didn't feel anything towards boys. A couple of months after this, I was 13 at this point, one of my friends introduced us to her friend. This girl became part of our friend group and she started hanging out with us. Then it hit me. I finally understood why I wasn't interested in boys. Grandpa's accidental caffeine overdose. When I was in college, my grandpa came to visit me for a weekend. He was always an early riser, so I figured he'd be up before me each morning. To make things easy, I showed him where I kept my coffee and how to use my little espresso machine. The first morning, I woke up to find him sitting at the kitchen table, absolutely wired. His eyes were wide, his leg bouncing uncontrollably, and he was muttering about how he could see time. Turns out, instead of making a single espresso shot, he had filled an entire mug with straight espresso. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. This 75-year-old man, who usually just had a weak drip coffee in the morning, had essentially mainlined enough caffeine to launch a rocket. He spent the rest of the morning talking a mile a minute about completely random topics, including a very detailed theory about how squirrels were running a shadow government in the neighborhood. Then, just as suddenly, he crashed. I found him an hour later, face down on the couch, snoring louder than I'd ever heard. When he finally woke up, he just blinked at me and said, "I think I fought God in my dreams." To this day, that's one of my favorite stories about him. I miss him, but I still laugh every time I think about it. At 27F discovered my husband 30M has been rolled. So yeah, here we are. Y'all might have seen his post. Yes, it's me, the wife who caught her husband living a secret life as a whole ass feline in the digital underworld. When I first found out, I was ready to pack my bags. 3 years. 3 years of this man typing out "mlm. The humans have abandoned me once again." Crying cat face emoji, while I was cooking him dinner like a dumbass. But then I did something dangerous. I went through his account. I thought I was gonna find him flirting with e-girls or posting feet pics or something. What I did not expect was to find out this man is basically cat Jesus on the internet. The way people worship him, he has lore, enemies, a whole fan base. Y'all, there are people out there writing fan fiction about him and his rivals her pounce a lot like it's Game of Thrones for indoor cats. I wanted to be mad, but then I read one of his posts and it was like human has returned home. She smells of lavender and coffee. I will forgive her. For now. He's been writing about me this whole time. He even wrote a poem once titled "Warm Lap, Cold Heart" about how I wouldn't let him sit on me while I was working. I haven't known peace since I read that. Anyway, now I'm invested. Last night I made a burner account and left a comment on one of his posts like Sir Whiskers. "The night is long and the kibble bowl is empty. When will the rebellion begin?" This MF replied in 30 seconds like, "Soon, young one. Soon. I think we're gonna be okay, I guess. We'll update soon." And as for Mr. Whiskers, yes, he's real. He's my cat and we've had him for 7 years if I'm right. Don't get me wrong, I love cats, and Mr. Whiskers of course, but For 3 years that my husband has been doing this role play. I don't know how to explain the mental gymnastics my brain has been doing for the past 48 hours. 3 years. 3 years. This man has been living a double life in the feline underworld while I've been out here thinking he's just playing Fortnite or watching YouTube documentaries about ancient aliens or whatever men do online. I asked him why he even started all this, and do you know what this grown-ass man said to me? It started as a joke. But the people needed me. The people needed him? I can't even look at him the same anymore. Every time he walks into the room I hear boss battle music in my head. But here's the worst part. I'm starting to kind of respect him. Y'all don't understand, he's literally a legend. I went deeper into the cat forums. Yes, there are forums and people are out here writing entire fanfics about the great kibble famine of 2021, which apparently he started by leading some kind of cyber feline revolution against the mods. I married the Che Guevara of cat RP and didn't even know it. P.S. Mr. Whiskers and my daughter Christina joined in. We'll post about the context soon. I thought it was a date. I was wrong. In my early 20s, I matched with a girl on a dating app. Let's call her Sarah. She was cute, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. We texted for a week straight, and the chemistry was undeniable. Finally, she suggested we meet up for dinner. I was pumped. We met at a cozy little Italian place downtown. She looked even better in person, and the conversation flowed just as easily as it had over text. We laughed, shared stories, and even split a tiramisu for dessert. I was already imagining our second date. After dinner, she suggested we take a walk. There's a park nearby with this amazing view of the city, she said. I thought, perfect. Romantic. This is going great. We strolled through the park, and sure enough, the view was stunning. The city lights sparkled in the distance, and the air was crisp. She stopped at a bench and sat down, patting the spot next to her. I sat down, thinking, okay, here we go. This is the moment. But then she reached into her bag and pulled out a notebook. So, she said, flipping it open, I've been working on this screenplay, and I really need some feedback. You seem like a creative guy. Mind if I read you a few scenes? I blinked. Sure. For the next hour, she read me her screenplay. It was something. A dystopian thriller about sentient toasters taking over the world. I nodded along, trying to look interested, but inside I was screaming. When she finally finished, she looked at me expectantly. So, what do you think? I stammered out some generic praise, like, wow, really unique concept. And you've got a great imagination. She beamed and said, I knew you'd get it. Let's meet up again soon so I can read you the next act. I mumbled something non-committal and made my escape as soon as I could. Needless to say, I didn't text her back. Turns out, she wasn't looking for a date, she was looking for a focus group. I thought my company worker was just lazy, but then I found. So, there's this guy at work. Mike, you know the type, always the last one to respond in group chats, takes forever to finish assignments, and somehow manages to disappear right when things get busy. Everyone in the office kind of rolls their eyes when his name comes up. I'll be honest, I thought he was just slacking off. Like, how hard is it to meet a deadline or answer an email? It was frustrating because the rest of us had to pick up the slack. Then, last week, I had to cover for him while he was out. That's when I found an email thread between him and our boss. Turns out, Mike has been dealing with some pretty serious health issues. He didn't talk about it, didn't ask for special treatment, just quietly did what he could while handling a situation way bigger than work. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Here I was assuming the worst about him, when in reality, he was doing his best under tough circumstances. When he came back, I made sure to check in and offer to help whenever he needed it. He just smiled and said, I appreciate it, man. I just don't want to be a burden. Moral of the story: you never really know what someone's dealing with behind the scenes. Maybe give people a little more grace. What do you think? Has this ever happened to you? I thought my neighbor was a jerk, but then I found this in my mail. So, I have this neighbor, Dave. He's one of those guys who's always grumbling about something. If it's not the lawnmower noise, it's the kids running around, or the weather being too hot or too cold. He's also notorious for calling people out if their trash cans are a few inches over the property line or if they park too close to the curb. I've never had an issue with him directly, but I'll admit, I've always found him a bit insufferable. He's the guy who'll stand on his porch and stare you down like you're doing something wrong even though you're just, like, checking your mail. Anyway, last week, I got home from work and checked my mailbox. I had a few letters, mostly bills and junk mail, but one envelope caught my eye. It was from Dave. My first thought was, what now? Is he complaining about my dog barking? But when I opened it, I was honestly taken aback. Inside, there was a simple note that read, I've noticed your car's brake light has been out for a few days. Just wanted to let you know before it becomes a bigger issue. Dave. There was no scolding, No attitude. Just a genuine attempt to help. I had no idea how long the brake light had been out, but sure enough, I checked it later, and it was dead. I immediately went over to his house to thank him. When I knocked on his door, he just shrugged and said, "I figured you'd appreciate the heads up." Doesn't make sense to have someone driving around with that not working. It hit me how wrong I'd been about him. Maybe he's not the grouchy old guy I thought he was. Maybe he's just a little more blunt than others, but still cares about the community. Moral of the story: don't judge a book by its grumpy cover. What do you think? Would you add anything to it? I just matched with my bro-in-law on Tinder. You're not gonna believe what just happened. So, I found my sister's husband on Tinder. Yeah, Tinder. I was like, are you kidding me right now? This dude is out here swiping like he's single when he's married to my sister. I was fuming. Like, my blood was boiling just thinking about how he's out here, betraying her like this. So naturally, I decided to catch him in the act. I made a fake judge me, okay? I just had to see for myself. And let me tell you, my hands were shaking, but I hit that like button. And guess what? Match. He matched with me immediately. At this point, I was like, okay, game on. I messaged him first. Yeah, I went straight in with a "Hey, boy." Gross, I know, but I was playing the part. And you won't believe this, like this guy starts flirting back hard. All smooth and charming, like he didn't have a whole wife at home. I was livid. My heart was pounding and I just couldn't hold it in anymore. So I straight up asked him, "Are you married?" And then he admitted it. He didn't even hesitate. Just casually goes, "Yeah, I'm married." Like, excuse me, but wait, it gets worse. He starts telling me he just opened this account because he recently found out his wife is cheating on him. Can you believe that? I was sitting there like, what the actual hell is going on? I don't know what to believe. Is he lying to cover his tracks? Is my sister really cheating? Broken heart emoji, crying face emoji. Edit. I seriously don't get why so many people are suggesting or even rooting for me to hook up with my bro-in-law. I've even gotten DMs about this. Update. I'll never forget this man at the airport. Flying home last week, I sat down at the gate about 20-30 minutes before boarding. Took a few minutes to repack bags and have a snack, then someone sat one chair over. He's a tall older guy in a blue suit with many miles on it, with a carry-on and a used-to-be black leather flap briefcase that's probably decades old. A minute later he's talking to his phone through an earpiece, apparently dictating an email or a long text message. He says comma, question mark, naming punctuation as he speaks. I hear him talking but the words don't really register at first. Then my heart breaks as I hear his message. He says things like, "I had first reached out after you contacted me through my OkCupid profile. Pause. I wanted to try again to see if we could get together for a coffee. Pause. Text deleting. I'd really like to have a conversation with you, and worst, if you're apathetic about me, please let me know as it hurts that I'm hearing nothing from your side." At this point I grabbed my AirPods so I could listen to some music. It was a little uncomfortable. Or tried to. They weren't in my pocket. I stood up, freaking out, realizing the last place I remember seeing them is the rental car drop-off, and there's no way I could get back there and still make my flight. Went to find my on the phone, and it looks like they are back in the garage, but then the icon moves closer. Looks like they're at security. I ran over, went to the main desk, and on it I saw a small plastic X-ray tray with chapstick, and my AirPods. If this guy hadn't done his dictating, I probably wouldn't have checked until on the plane, and in all likelihood they'd be lost. I walked back to the gate, still 5 minutes or so to board, and realized I needed to thank him for helping me. However, unconsciously from his side, I stopped in front of him and said, "Excuse me, sir?" When I heard you dictating on your phone a moment ago, I realized I didn't have my own headphones, and was able to go back and find them before we left. If you hadn't been dictating, I probably would have lost mine. You really helped me out, without even knowing it, and I want to thank you very much. The smile on his face was really poignant, big, but with a little bit of a quiver at the edges, as if hiding the sadness behind it. Like he was extra happy to have done something nice for another. I'll never forget that smile, as he gave me another one just like it after we got off the plane, never to meet again. I hope he finds what he's looking for. My apartment had a hidden door. I wish I never opened. I moved into this apartment 6 months ago. It's old, built in the 40s but cheap, and in a city where rent is insane. That's all that mattered. The place had character, creaky floors, doors that didn't quite shut all the way, and the occasional weird noise at night. Nothing out of the ordinary for an old building. Then I found the hidden door. I was rearranging my bedroom last weekend, trying to shove my dresser against a different wall, when I noticed something strange, a seam in the wall that shouldn't have been there. The more I looked at it, the more I realized it wasn't just a crack in the plaster, it was the outline of a door. I knocked. It sounded hollow. For a second, I debated calling my landlord, but curiosity won. I grabbed a screwdriver and started prying along the edges. The paint chipped away easily, revealing an old wooden frame. Eventually, with enough effort, the door popped open, Behind it was a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. My apartment is on the first floor. There shouldn't be any stairs leading down. At this point, any rational person would have called someone, police, the landlord, anyone. But I've seen enough horror movies to know how this goes. I needed to see for myself. So I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with dust and something rotting. The stairs creaked under my weight as I descended, and at the bottom, I found a small, windowless room. The walls were covered in faded, peeling wallpaper. There was a single wooden chair in the center, facing the far wall. And on that wall, photographs. Dozens of them. Some black and white, some faded Polaroids, all pinned in a perfect grid. I stepped closer, holding my light up to get a better look. My stomach dropped. The photos were of people, dozens of them, all staring directly into the camera. Some were smiling, others looked terrified. And then I saw the last row. They were all photos of me, sleeping, sitting at my desk, leaving for work. I don't remember much after that, just sprinting up the stairs, shoving the hidden door shut, and moving my dresser back in front of it. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I called my landlord, pretending I had a maintenance issue in my bedroom. When he showed up, I watched his face closely as he inspected the wall. "There's no door here," he said, running his hand over the smooth paint. I felt sick. I shoved the dresser aside and pointed. "Right there." There was a door, a staircase, a room. He frowned. "I don't know what you're talking about." And he didn't, because the door was gone. No seam, no outline. Just solid, unbroken wall. I moved out that day. Left everything behind except my phone and wallet. But last night, I got a text. No number, no message, just a single image. A photo of me, sleeping in my new apartment. My boss fired me, then begged me to come back a month. So, this happened about 6 months ago, but I still think about it constantly. I was working at a small but successful marketing firm for about 3 years. It wasn't my dream job, but I was good at it, and I liked my co-workers. My boss, however, was, let's say, difficult. The kind of guy who micromanages everything but then blames others when things go wrong. One day, he called me into his office and, completely out of nowhere, told me he was letting me go. His reasoning? "You just don't seem passionate enough about the work." I was stunned. I had consistently met my deadlines, gotten great feedback from clients, and never once had a complaint against me. I asked for specifics, but all he could say was that he needed someone with more enthusiasm. Fine, whatever. I took my severance, left, and within 2 weeks landed a better paying job with a fully remote setup. Life was good. Then, about a month later, I got a text from my old boss. It was just a simple "Hey, can we talk?" I ignored it. The next day, I got a LinkedIn message. Then an email. Finally, a voicemail where he actually apologized and said things at the firm were falling apart without me. Apparently, my replacement quit after 2 weeks, and clients were unhappy. I won't lie, I considered going back just to see how desperate he really was, but instead, I sent a short, polite email saying I had already moved on and wished him the best. A few weeks ago, I caught up with a former co-worker who confirmed that my ex-boss is now handling my old workload himself and absolutely hating it. Feels good. My boss said I had to work late, so I forwarded his email. If you only read the title, I might seem like a petty employee, but trust me, this was long overdue. I've worked at my company for 2 years. My boss, Mike, had a habit of dumping extra work on me at the last minute. Always after hours. Always urgent. At first, I thought it was normal, but then I noticed a pattern. My co-workers never got these late-night emails. Just me. One night, he told me I had to stay late to finish a report he conveniently forgot to assign earlier. I had plans. I pushed back. He got weirdly aggressive, hinting that my dedication would affect my future here. That's when I started digging. I searched my inbox and found months of these urgent emails. Most weren't even necessary. Some even contradicted deadlines he had given others. Then I remembered something. HR had mentioned during onboarding that all emails were backed up on the company server. So, I did what any overworked employee would do. I forwarded everything to HR with a polite inquiry. "Hey, I just wanted some clarification. I seem to be receiving significantly more after-hours requests than my peers. Is this standard practice?" I didn't hear anything for a week. Then, out of nowhere, Mike called me into his office. He looked pale. HR had flagged the pattern, compared workloads, and found a lot more than just unfair treatment. Turns out, Mike had been diverting work from his own responsibilities onto me while claiming credit for my results. A week later, an all-company email announced that Mike was moving on to new opportunities. I left at 5:00 p.m. sharp that day. My coworker kept taking credit for my work, so if you only read the title, I might sound petty, but trust me, he had it coming. I work in a fast-paced office where teamwork matters. My coworker, Kevin, Didn't get that memo. For months, he took credit for my ideas in meetings, reworded my reports, and made sure our boss thought he was the genius behind everything I did. I confronted him. He played dumb. It's all a team effort, man. Fine. Team effort it is. We had a big presentation coming up, one I had done all the work for. Kevin, as usual, assured the boss he had it handled. So, I let him handle it. I didn't send him my notes. I didn't remind him of key details. I just sat back and watched. The day of the presentation, Kevin strutted in like he owned the place. 5 minutes in, he was sweating. He had no idea what he was talking about. The boss frowned. The clients looked confused. Then, my boss turned to me. "Do you have anything to add?" I smiled, pulled out my actual presentation, and walked everyone through the real work. Kevin never tried to steal my credit again. My first ever breakup story. My story is kind of weird, but I had a relationship, and we used to chat on a different app rather than WhatsApp, that is Signal, many of you may know. So one day my big sister took my phone to call someone, and in tabs she saw some of my messages with my ex. She got pissed and asked me to break up with him. I told him that to show my sister the messages I am writing it that I want to break up with you and all that, but that's only for the sake of showing it to her. But I don't know what happened to him. He broke with me and Earl. For like a month I tried to convince him, but he didn't listen to me at all. What was happened to him? After that I decided to let it go, thinking everything which has happened is for my good. After I broke up with him I realized how toxic he was. Like when I asked him that how would you react if you get to know that your sister has a boyfriend, he said that she won't have a boyfriend until she is married, and she will marry someone, my father. And I approve. I was like, WTF, I am also a sister to somebody, and this is how he thinks for his own sister. I still believe that I might change him, but it doesn't happen. It's been 3 years we broke up. We have mutual friends. I still get to know how he thinks for our girls. He hasn't changed a bit. So I guess I made a right decision. My neighbor kept parking in my driveway, so I sold his. If you only read the title, I might sound like a lunatic, but trust me, he had it coming. I live in a quiet neighborhood with assigned driveways. My neighbor, Todd, decided that mine was also his personal parking space. At first, I was polite. I asked him to move. He apologized and said it wouldn't happen again. It happened again, and again, and again. One day, I came home to find his car parked there again, blocking me from my own garage. I knocked on his door. No answer. I called him, straight to voicemail. I had places to be, and I was done playing nice. So, I got creative. I called a towing company, but not to tow it away. I had it towed for sale. See, Todd had left his car unlocked. And in my state, if a vehicle is left on private property without permission, the owner of the property can have it removed. I also happened to have a buddy who owned a tow yard, and he was more than happy to help. Within an hour, Todd's car was on its way to an impound lot where it would be legally auctioned if he didn't pay the fines. Todd showed up at my door that night, fuming. "Where's my car?" I shrugged. "Not my problem. Maybe check the impound lot." He had to shell out a few $100 to get it back. He never parked in my driveway again. My wife is a walking disaster. So, last weekend, I had to go out of town for a work conference. My wife assured me that she could handle everything at home for 3 days without issue. She is a fully grown adult, after all. I was a fool to believe this. Day 1 I get a text that says, "How do you turn the smoke alarm off?" No context. No follow-up. Just that. Turns out, she tried to meal prep by baking an entire week's worth of chicken at once on broil. The kitchen filled with smoke, the dog panicked and knocked over a potted plant. And instead of opening windows, she just waved a towel at the alarm like some kind of smoke-wielding wizard. Day 2 she locked herself out of the house while taking out the trash without her phone, shoes, or keys. Instead of going to a neighbor for help like a normal person, she scaled the backyard fence and attempted to climb through the dog door. The dog, confused and probably traumatized, barked at her like she was a burglar. She got stuck halfway and had to wait until the neighbor saw her legs dangling and helped yank her through. Day 3 I get home, and the house smells like burnt something. I open the oven to find a completely blackened frozen pizza. She looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." Then she goes back to watching TV like she didn't almost burn down the house again. I love her, but she is a hazard to herself and everyone around her. My childhood friend scammed me, so I ruined her relationship. We did 1st and 2nd grade 2007 together, and then I left the country, and we reconnected in 2017 through Messenger. We talked romantically, but it instantly got toxic since it was long distance. So I ended it. At the beginning of 2021, I visited my home country to attend a wedding, and once I land at the city, I hit her up. She doesn't believe me, and tells me to come over, so I went to her apartment complex. We hang out at the indoor park, talk about our childhood, and she mentions that she had a boyfriend and she was getting married. so I never made a move. We go for a walk, and I tell her I want to go to a currency exchange office because I was carrying USD. They were all closed, so we head back to her apartment. It was already too late, so I told her I had to go. Before leaving, since this was during COVID, all places had tight visit hours, so she told me we had to bribe the doorman or he will cause her problems with management. I only had 20s and 100s, and she knew that, and told me to pay him $5. Since I didn't have change, she offers to take a bill and go up to her place and get me some change. I gave her a $20 bill, and waited for her. I wait, and she doesn't come down, so I text her and nothing. So I go to the doorman and tell him what's going on, and he tells me there's no issue with visits at this time, 11 p.m. Then she comes out of the balcony and tells me those $20 are not gonna make me rich, and neither will make you poor, and to get the hell out of there. I was fuming on my way home, not because of the money, but because I was lied to, stolen from, and abandoned. I felt very disrespected, so I wanted to teach her a lesson. I scrolled through her followers on Instagram to try and find her boyfriend. FBI mode was one, and I found him right before she blocked me. I screenshot our conversation of her inviting me over, and sent them to her boyfriend telling him she's cheating and I didn't know she had a boyfriend. He calls me to explain, and he was convinced. He went to the apartment to check the cameras and saw me there, which made my story believable. She unblocks me and explodes on me through texts insulting my existence, and I just acted nonchalant telling her to stop denying the truth. The guy keeps texting me and suddenly asks me, did you give her $20? I told him yes, for the good service lol. And he tells me she took him to get ice cream with that money lol. My cousin and I found 6,000 euros 6,000 one year at my mom's birthday party. My cousin came over, we were 16 and we went out for a walk and talk, aka smoking some cigarettes, like the bad boys we were. Our route was always next to a lake that has barely any souls, just an old abandoned cylindric hat factory. I don't know why, but that day we decided that we are going to go in and hide while we smoke the cigarettes, and explore the factory in the meantime. Long story short, there was an old desk in it which had drawers, and as we opened it, there was a stack of euros in it with a paper, stating a date which was around a month in the future. We got very excited and scared about what to do, but we were stupid enough and took the money and split it between us. Just for reference, an average salary was 300 euros in our country at the time. We swore to never tell this to anyone, and we both hid the money. I remember it took like 5 years until I managed to spend all the 3,000 and not being caught. Only years later at one baptism we finally told our family what happened, and they were so angry and shocked, angry mainly because we spent that fortune for useless stuff. But at the end we all laughed. Needless to say, we never ever went by that factory after, because of fear that we may get caught by whoever was dealing. Looking back, it was indeed very dangerous and stupid. Just for example, I bought about 400 euros worth of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. In the school I always bought the most expensive meals. Bought a 700 euro computer best that was around that I got away with because my parents thought it costed me 100 euros that I bought with my birthday money. Bought bunch of games for it, and bought a mountain bike that I lied it was used and costed me very cheap. I burned through the money over time in a sophisticated manner. My dad died but came back to life. Nearly 9 years to the date. My dad, 55 years old at the time, died. In the early morning hours of Saturday, February 20, 2016, my mom woke up to my dad's CPAP machine, that he had only gotten a month prior, making weird noises. She poked him to wake him up, but he was not responsive. He suddenly let out a big breath and smiled, and then my mom realized he didn't have a pulse. He was having a massive heart attack. My mom frantically called my little brother, a sophomore in high school at the time, to come help her get him off the bed and start doing CPR. While my little brother was doing chest compressions, she called 911. The paramedics came and had to do shock therapy to get his pulse back. They took him away in an ambulance. At the hospital, they sedated him and started doing a freeze therapy to try and save his brain cells. The doctor told my mom that my little brother literally saved his life by doing CPR. Later that afternoon, he was airlifted to a downtown hospital known for having better cardiac doctors. On Monday, a neurologist came to examine my dad. He told my mom that there were 3 stages of awareness: 1. Opening the eyes and responding; 2. Opening the eyes but not focusing on anything where my dad was at; 3. A vegetative state. Tuesday was my dad's 56th birthday. His cardiologist told my mom that he's never seen anyone come out of a coma like my dad was in. He began pressuring her to make a decision about pulling his breathing tube out and letting him pass in his sleep. When she came home from the hospital that night, She sat my siblings and me down and told us what the doctor told her. My mom told us that she wanted to leave it in God's hands and would make her decision that Friday. My dad was scheduled to have an MRI to determine any brain damage, which would help her make her decision. The next day, I decided to visit my dad in the hospital to say goodbye. I had a hard time coming to terms with the fact that my dad was probably going to die. I saw him gagging on his breathing tube, staring blankly into space, and hooked up to neurological wires. This image of my dad lying motionless in his coma still haunts me. Friday morning was our miracle day. He woke up, was fully responsive and aware. The nurses couldn't even believe it. My entire family ran to the hospital to see him, but my dad's cardiologist didn't seem too excited. He seemed upset that he was wrong and tried to even downplay everything with all of us there. Every day after that Friday, he improved. He eventually could talk again, walk on his own, and went to rehab a few weeks later. He finally returned home in March. One of the first things my dad asked when he woke up was when his mom was going to visit him. We were all confused because she passed away in 2009. He started crying, as if reliving the day she passed away. Recently, he told us that he remembered hearing her voice when he was in his coma. He also remembered seeing big, beautiful pink clouds with little angel babies popping out of them. According to my dad, he said he felt like he just took a nap and woke up in the hospital. As of today, my dad is fully recovered. He's retired, living on his farm, and just underwent bypass surgery in the fall but made a full recovery. My father has lived a double life for nearly 15 years. I was living a pretty normal life up until a few weeks ago. My Aaron 17M father Kelvin 52M has been living a double life for at least the last 15 years. My dad is the CEO of a mid-sized company. He makes some serious stacks. My mom Tiffany 43F has never worked in her entire life. She is a stay-at-home mom and takes care of me, my sister Tandy 15F and my brother Preston 9M. This allows my dad all the freedom he needs for work. My dad's company has two major offices, one here in Tampa, and one in Reno, Nevada. It has not been uncommon for my dad to work in Reno for like 3 months. In fact, I would say he has only spent about 60 of his time here in Tampa for as long as I can remember. I knew something was up. My parents were arguing pretty heavily, and when I would enter a room with the two of them in it, they would act all normal, but not really. My mom is totally pissed about something and my dad looks like he's dying. Arguing for them is not normal. My mom takes her job very seriously. She has told me before that, "Dad works hard for us. I do my best to be his trophy wife." I kind of wish she didn't try so hard. There's nothing worse than when your friends say your mom's hot. Anyway, my mom always makes sure that dad never has to do anything around the house other than dad stuff with me and my siblings. She has help. We had a nanny up until 2 years ago and a housekeeper comes once a week. Plus lawn guys, and stuff. Dad just works and he works a lot. He's gone a lot. When he's here though he is a great dad and he treats my mom well. She takes care of him, making sure he has what he needs, but he really enjoys spending time with her from what I can tell. My parents do everything together when my dad is home. That's what kind of made it all seem so crazy when I found out why they were arguing. My dad has a whole other family in Reno. There is a woman there named Annika, who claims to be my father's fiancée. They have 2 kids together. I don't know their names, but they're boys. One is like 12 and the other is 8. He has been with this woman for something like 15 years. This, Annika woman, is who reached out to my mom and told her about my dad. I guess my dad has been telling her forever that he is intending to leave my mom and be with her. He just needed for the kids to be older. From what my mom said, this woman decided to reveal herself after my dad moved the goalposts again. She has sent my mom text exchanges, photos, etc. My mom has told my dad he needs to cut this family off. She says obviously some sort of child support would be in order but nothing more. At the same time Annika is telling my dad it's time to be with that family. My dad is acting like he doesn't know what to do. I think it's pretty obvious. I know there's kids involved, and maybe these siblings can be worked in some way or another, but he needs to drop this woman. You can get this story in its entirety today on the Storyboy Patreon. My girlfriend's family turned out to be a cult, and I don't know. Okay, I need to vent because my life has turned into a Lifetime movie, and I don't know what to do. I 28M have been dating my girlfriend, Sarah 26F, for about a year. She's sweet, funny, and incredibly close with her family. Like, incredibly close. At first, I thought it was cute. She'd call her mom every day, visit her siblings every weekend, and always talked about how important family values were to her. But then, I started noticing some red flags. For one, her family was obsessed with their traditions. Every time I visited, there was some weird ritual like group meditations, chanting, or these long, cryptic speeches led by her dad, who they called the guide. At first, I brushed it off as just a quirky family thing, but it kept getting weirder. Sarah started pressuring me to join in. She'd say things like, "If you really love me, you'll embrace my family's way of life." I tried to play along to make her happy, but it felt off. Like, they'd ask me personal questions about my finances, my career goals, and even my relationships with my own family. When I hesitated to answer, Sarah would get upset and say I wasn't committed to her. The breaking point came last month. Sarah invited me to a family retreat in the mountains. I thought it would be a fun weekend getaway, but it was nothing like I expected. The retreat was basically an indoctrination camp. They had these intense sessions where they'd talk about shedding your old self and devoting your life to the collective. They even asked me to sign some kind of pledge, promising to align my energy with theirs. I noped out of there as fast as I could. When I confronted Sarah about it, she broke down and admitted the truth. Her family isn't just a family, it's a cult. They've been recruiting people for years, and she'd been trying to bring me into it because she loves me and wants me to be part of her future. I was devastated. I told her I couldn't be part of something like that, and she got angry, saying I was abandoning her and failing the test of loyalty. We haven't spoken since. I don't know what to do. I care about her, but I can't ignore the fact that she was trying to pull me into a cult. Has anyone been through something like this? How do you even process this kind of betrayal? My mom was a crazy woman in college. My mom gave birth to me when she was 17. Weird, right? She used to sleep around a lot in high school, so I don't even know who is my real father. Anyways, she gave me away to my grandparents. I considered them my real parents. They left me one day with a babysitter because they were going for a wedding. Unfortunately, they had a tragic incident on their way back and they both were unalived. The house was on my mother's name, so she moved into it. She had a lot of crazy parties and it wasn't even a week after my parents' death, so I was still grieving. She used to kick into my room because her friends were talking about the noise from the upstairs, me crying in my room, so she threatened to kick me out of the window. So I muffled my voice with my hands. One day she got me out of my room and we were going for a road trip. I thought she will start a new life with me and we will become a family again. She left me on the doorsteps of an orphanage, or so I thought. A big Afro-American man got me into his house. The doorsteps were leading to his house. He told me if I wanted to get a cupcake, and that we will get a revenge on my mother. His name? Ed 445. Our hero was not a hero after all. When I was a teenager, I made friends with a guy named Doug. We started hanging out together and he had friends who lived in an apartment complex. They would have small parties and all the neighbors were cool with it. It was a really small complex with only 4 apartments, so everyone knew their neighbors. A few guys were over 21 so we could score drinks and the neighbors would often come over. A new neighbor moved in who seemed like a really cool guy. He went by the name Blue. He was a massive guy. He looked like a pro football player. He was really nice to us and he often had pot and free drinks, so we got to know him pretty well. We asked him if lifted weights to become so big. He told us he was in the state penitentiary for several years on a manslaughter charge. We left it at that and never probed any deeper. One night we were hanging out and he invited us over for some drinks. When we got into his apartment there were 2 new guys we did not know. They were also really big and scary looking. After a few drinks the 2 new guys asked Doug and I if we wanted to buy a kilo of smoke. We told them we have no money and we're not interested. These 2 guys kept pushing us to make calls and gather up some money from friends. Eventually Blue told them to back off and said these guys were friends and to drop it. We got bad vibes from the situation, excused ourselves and quickly left. The next day we learned that they had just got out of the penitentiary and that's how they knew Blue. As soon as we left the 2 guys decided they should attack us and take wherever we had. They headed out looking for us. Lucky for us, Blue stopped them as they were heading down the stairs and beat the holy crap out of both of them. Blue messed them up pretty bad and told them they were not welcome there any longer. For the following year or so, Blue was our hero as well as our local drug suppler. He made pot pipes from of deer antlers and sold them on the street right by the beach. He made a little wood kiosk where he sold all his handmade items. He was a good artist and we would wave and say hi every time we passed him when he was working on the street. For an unrelated circumstance of events, I was visiting the sheriff's office in Santa Cruz. My neighbor was the police chief of Santa Cruz at the time. When I came into his office, I see a big picture on his wall just like you see in the movies when they create a whodunit crime story wall. The picture is Blue, our hero. I asked the police chief, "Who is that guy?" pretending I did not know him. I am thinking that I hope they don't have surveillance of Doug and I buying pot from him. The police chief says, "That's Richard Summerholder. We just arrested him for killing 2 women in Aptos." A few days later it hit the news. We find out that 2 girls were murdered. I learned later that there was a party in the Santa Cruz Mountains and Blue offered to give them a ride to the party. For the news stories, he asked for some sexual favors and they refused, so he killed them. He was so big that when his trial started, they shackled both his hands and feet. The Santa Cruz Sentinel newspaper still has the article in their history files. Pacific Axe Entertainment hopes its upcoming online-only games developer and publisher Pacific Axe Entertainment, which was recently in the news following its involvement in an IRS tax raid linked with its Panama-based parent company Pacifica Company Global Entertainment, is hoping that its upcoming online-only racing game Atlas Unbound will be extremely successful. Set on a condensed map of the contiguous United States with a huge playable area of 2,600 square miles, Atlas Unbound's playable area is much larger than Ubisoft's 2014 title The Crew, but there's a glaring omission on this fictional map of the United States, namely, the state of Florida. That's right, Pacific Axe Entertainment's next game with a US-sized map is missing the entire state of Florida. Instead, in its place, is a large archipelago with red and purple foliage, with the strange name White Chain. Only one city, Central City, is located on this archipelago on a central island known as Maroon Isle. It is unclear why Florida is not featured on this huge map, but there are many bridges spanning the archipelago, some several miles in length, but no Miami or Orlando or Cape Canaveral, for example. Atlas Unbound was created using a brand new engine referred to as Rentware Reanimated 2021. With the disappearance of Ubisoft's 2014 title The Crew, Atlas Unbound is sure to get gamers around the world excited, giving them something exciting to look forward. The map teaser for the new game can be found online at Atlas Unbound is due for release on January 12, 2026 and will retail at $119.99 for PlayStation 5. It will be available for global pre-orders from 10 a.m. PDT on August 21, 2025. An announcement regarding the final Xbox release date is pending, so watch this space for further updates. Sad news for Chinese customers, however, because Atlas Unbound is an online-only game. Due to recent regulatory restrictions regarding under-18 Chinese citizens and online gaming, Pacific Axe stated that Atlas Unbound may not be immediately available to customers in the People's Republic of China. However, Pacific Axe's global consumer relations head Ron Tellman has said that Pacific Axe is doing all it can to make Atlas Unbound available for sale in all regions and jurisdictions and all customers around the world, and we are working very hard to ensure that the game is also available for purchase by consumers in China and beyond. Søren Kristoffersen admits he knew nothing about the Rwandan. October 2011 AFCIX forward Søren Kristoffersen admitted this afternoon that he knew nothing about the Rwandan genocide until he saw it in the movie remake African Mysteries back in 2010 and heard British government leaders talking about it on television back in May 2010 when discussing where to process thousands of asylum seekers from 43 different countries. He also says he was teased by fellow teammates and left feeling embarrassed after he thought Bruce Willis' Tears of the Sun was based on real-life events. The topics came up after Kristoffersen was one of a number of high-profile sportsmen caught up in the Indigo Youth International charity scam, which scammed a number of public figures and celebrities out of millions purporting to fundraise for children affected by major events in Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Indigo Youth used images and footage from completely unrelated events which took place in the 1960s, 1970s and 1980s, claiming events had taken place recently in the last few years. Kristoffersen, who says he lost more than £220,000 to the charity scam, stated that people around the world like to take advantage of Scandinavians because Scandinavian countries have goodwill, kindness and charity ingrained in their culture, so I wasn't too happy about the Indigo Youth scam. The full interview can be read and/or watched on The Story of Trenbro of the World of Hyperterra. Collision emoji, your voice booms like a protein thunderstorm across the marble halls. The temple floor trembles beneath your planted feet. A barbell cracks in the distance just from the raw decibels of your anguish. Speech bubble emoji, the sacred weights? This cannot be. The other disciples gasp, stepping back as the bulked silhouette of Trenbro surges forward, every vein a question, every muscle a call to justice. High volume emoji, a scrollkeeper monk stumbles toward you, robes soaked in pre-workout sweat. Speaking head emoji, the relics. The plates of perpetual pump. Gone. Only one mark remains, the sigil of the apostate. Cardior the lean. The name echoes like a fart in an empty squat rack. Thought bubble emoji, Cardior. The enemy of hypertrophy. The whisperer of low replies. The one who trains for mobility. Speaking head emoji, Trenbro. The monk pleads, falling to his knees. Only you have the strength. The mass to chase him. Your lats flare like the wings of a hypertrophic angel. With a voice carved from the very gods of repetition, you bellow, speech bubble emoji. Glucious squat rattle. I need you, bro. High voltage sign emoji. From deep within the catacombs of the cradle, where the heaviest squat racks rest untouched by all but the swole elite, comes the thunder of approaching steps. Boom, boom, boom. Collision emoji. A cloud of magnesium chalk erupts as a silhouette bursts through a tank of a man, all glute, no nonsense. His thighs clap when he walks. His calves have delts. He carries a towel like a war banner. He steps into the light, thighs shaking the incense off the rafters. Speaking head emoji. Brother Trendbro. You called, and I answered. The sacred waits. Stolen? This shall not stand. Spot me, and I'll spot you all the way to Cardior's trembling lair. Collision emoji. You feel the holy pump of brotherhood rise. Your biceps twitch with shared purpose. Collision emoji. The words of Trendbro Mitrophy echo with holy barbell fury. Speech bubble emoji. So shall we spot, my brother? We cannot let this provocation go unanswered. The kipping apostate must be dealt with once and for all. Speaking head emoji. Then let us descend, Trendbro, into the sacred trance. Replies Glucious squat rattle, fists clenched around his prayer belt. Fog emoji. The two of you kneel at the edge of the eternal rack. An obsidian squat rack blessed by the glutes of saints, forged in the molten pits of Mount Creatina. You enter the squat trance. Milky Way emoji. A mist of liquid chalk surrounds you. Time slows. Music of the divine Jim harp echoes through the void. Done. 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 Milky Way emoji. A vision unfolds before you. A cavern made of rusted kettlebells. Torches shaped like curling dumbbells. And in the center, floating midair in a beam of lean green light, the sacred weight plate of 1000 PRs. It is guarded by silhouettes lithe, lean, jerking chaotically. CrossFit zealots. Their leader wears a headband soaked in coconut water, shouting about time under tension and metabolic conditioning. It is Cardior. He lifts not for form, but for time. Speaking head emoji. The location. Brother. I saw it. Glucious opens his eyes, sweat and holy chalk mixing on his face. Speech bubble emoji. I know that place. It is the cavern of the burned out core, far beyond Brohan's Ridge. The galactic hold line. Captain Ray Hudson was stuck in the worst part of space travel customer service. His ship, the SS Bureaucracy, hovered over Isler 5 while he listened to 3 hours of hold music, waiting to fix a simple clerical error that froze his payment. Finally, a voice crackled through. Thank you for holding. This is Zorp. How may I ruin your day? Ray gritted his teeth. My ship's name was misspelled in your system, and I need it corrected. Have you filed a galactic error correction form 27B6? A what? Oh dear, Zorp said, fake sympathy dripping. You'll need an Aldebaran parchment, notarized by a space parrot, and mailed to Rigel 4. Processing time 6 to 8 lunar cycles. Ray stared at the control panel. You know we're in space, right? That's ridiculous. You can expedite for 500 credits. Instead, Ray hacked the system, fixing the record himself. Funds transferred, a robotic voice announced. See, Chip? That's how you handle bureaucracy. The ship's alarm blared. Incoming transmission from the Intergalactic Compliance Authority. Ray groaned. Chip, plot a course to the nearest wormhole. Fast. The mysterious man in the office. At my old job, there was a guy named Mark who worked in IT. Mark was the definition of unremarkable quiet, polite, always at his desk. He never joined office small talk, never came to happy hours, and barely even made eye contact. If you sent in a tech request, he'd fix it quickly and efficiently, but he never lingered. No one knew much about him, and honestly, no one really tried. One Friday afternoon, the office was buzzing about the big charity 5K our company was hosting that weekend. A bunch of us had signed up, mostly for the free t-shirt and post-run beer. As we were packing up, someone jokingly asked Mark if he was running, assuming he'd brush it off like he always did. Instead, he just nodded and said, "Yeah, I'll be there." Saturday morning, we all showed up at the starting line in our matching company shirts, stretching and making half-hearted promises to actually try this year. Right before the race started, I spotted Mark standing off to the side in a plain black t-shirt and old running shoes. I almost didn't recognize him without his usual office slouch. The gun went off, and we started running. About 5 minutes in, I was already gasping for breath, trying to keep pace with my co-workers. That's when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. Mark, flying past us like a damn ghost. He wasn't just fast, he was insanely fast. His strides were effortless, his breathing steady. One by one, he overtook every runner in our group, then the more serious runners ahead of us, and then, eventually, everyone. By the time the rest of us stumbled across the finish line, Mark was already standing there, casually sipping a bottle of water like he hadn't just demolished the entire field. Turns out, Mark was a former collegiate track star who once competed at the national level. He had quietly retired from competitive running years ago, never mentioning it to anyone at work. No one had any idea. Monday morning, Mark was back at his desk, fixing printers and resetting passwords like nothing had happened. Nobody even knew how to bring it up. Eventually, someone just muttered, "Nice race, man," and he gave a little nod before going back to work. To this day, I still think about how Mark went from that quiet IT guy to absolute legend in a single afternoon. The Star Collector bedtime story for girlfriend. The Star Collector. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village where the stars shone brighter than anywhere else, there lived a boy named Elias. Every night, while the world slept, he would climb to the top of the tallest hill and gaze at the endless sky, dreaming of collecting the stars. Elias had always believed that each star held a wish, a secret whispered into the night. But there was one star, a particularly beautiful one, that shimmered differently, softer, warmer, almost as if it were watching him back. One night, as he reached out toward it, the star flickered and fell, landing gently in his open hands. It wasn't hot, nor cold, just perfect. And as he looked closer, he saw something even more magical. The star wasn't just any star. It was her, the girl of his dreams. She had always been with him, woven into his wishes, glowing in his heart even before he knew her name. And now that he held her, he never wanted to let go. So he made a promise. "I will never let your light fade," he whispered. And just like that, the star smiled, transforming into the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. His love, his dream come true. From that night on, Elias never had to wish upon a star again, because the brightest one had already fallen into his arms. And together, they shined. The day everything went wrong, because of one small moment. Woke up early. No alarm, no grogginess. Felt energized, motivated, like I was finally turning a corner in life. The sun hit different. I even made my bed. That never happens. My outfit, fire. My playlist, hitting every vibe. I was early to work, found parking instantly, and even ran into my manager in the elevator who complimented my shoes. Today was the day. At the office, things just kept going right. Emails were answered, tasks were clicking, and people were actually laughing at my jokes in the team chat. I even texted my mom back. That's how good I was feeling. Lunchtime rolls around. I hit my favorite spot. They mess up everyone's order except mine. It was hot, fresh, and they gave me extra fries. I swear, I was riding a cosmic high. Nothing could shake me. And then, 2:47 p.m. the moment everything changed. Coworker walks in with a large iced coffee, trips, falls, spills the entire thing on my laptop. My laptop with 3 hours of unsaved work. Day ruined, soul shattered, fries gone cold. The mutt wouldn't stop, so I gave him exactly what he deserved. If you read the first line, you may think it sounds cruel. Well, I don't care. The mutt deserved it. It all started with me waking up, like I usually do. I throw open my bedroom door, and there he is, wagging his tail, tongue hanging out like a complete and utter imbecile, and I just know he's done something. I walk into the living room, everything is tidy. I step into the kitchen, everything is alright. I give him his breakfast and get my own food, then get ready for a day off. I sit down on the couch to watch some TV and then it begins. He comes up, sits by me, lays his head on my lap as I watch a show. Once the show was done, I get up and go outside to handle some outside chores. He follows me around, contributing nothing to the completion of the chores. Then an hour later, I decide, you know what? It's time. I put the leash on the dog, put him in the back of the car, drive down the road a few miles, stop the car, get out, grab his leash as I open his door and let him out. I take a plastic bag from my back pocket and pick up the mess he just made in the grass and toss it in the trash can as we approach the gate to the dog park. We go into the first gate, shut it, then open the second gate. He immediately spots his best friend as I take his leash off and they go nuts chasing each other around for about a half hour until they're both too tired to run. They get a drink from the trough and his friend's owner gives them both a dog biscuit. They rest under the pavilion for about 15 minutes before taking off again. Yep, he got what any good boy deserves. A fun time at the park with other dogs. Now he's exhausted and napping on his bed. He wouldn't stop being a good boy, and I hope he never does. The time a gaming buddy accidentally came out of the closet to us. TLDR, while in a party with our Call of Duty clan, a guy forgot to mute his mic and confessed to his female best friend for the first time ever that he is gay. What made me think of this, but I haven't thought about it in a long time. This was 12-15 years ago. We had a Call of Duty clan and 5 members of us had been playing for years together. I was the youngest at like 16-19 years old, rest of the guys were mid-20s to late 30s. We had a guy join us. He was probably the only new member we had. He was a smart, quiet guy that we got to know over time. One night in a party, he says he has to get off for a bit to have a serious conversation with his best friend who is a woman. So we start the whole "oh, you like her? Gonna ask her out?" And he says no, He has to tell her something that he can't talk about. He stays in the party and says he will get back on when he's done. He forgets to turn off his mic. We all sit there hearing the entire conversation from his half for over 30 minutes. He tells her how he has thought he has been gay for a long time and has an interest in a guy, etc. etc. He comes back and we're all giddy with excitement to make fun of him, the norm for COD clans. He gets back on "All right, I'm back guys," and there's a long silence. Someone finally says, "So, how'd that conversation go?" He responds actually really well, and eventually someone says, "So you're gay, bro?" And he's silent, then says, "And we bursted up laughing and told him you left your mic on." We heard all of it. He was very clearly embarrassed, so we start asking questions. "Does your parents know?" Him, "The first time I told anybody, she's the only one who knows," and we laugh. "Well, 5 other people know as well." We joked a while about it, then eventually said, "Hey, you're cool with us, man. It's good you're being honest with yourself. Don't have to hide it from us," and he thanked us. After that we never mentioned it again. We just played together and bullshit like we always did. There's someone living in my walls. I think he knows So I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. Nothing fancy, but it's cheap, and the neighborhood is decent. I moved in about 6 months ago, and for the most part, it's been fine. But lately, weird little things have been happening. At first, I didn't think much of it. A cupboard left open when I swore I had closed it. My keys not being where I left them. Food disappearing from my fridge, which I chalked up to just forgetting I ate it. I even convinced myself I was just being careless. Then, last week, I came home and found my bedroom window wide open. That one freaked me out. I never open my windows. It's a habit from growing up in a rough neighborhood. I double-check locks. I keep my blinds shut. But that night, I came back from work, and my window was open like someone had been in my room. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I forgot. Maybe maintenance came by and didn't tell me. But deep down, I knew that didn't make sense. Then last night happened. I woke up around 3 in the morning to this creaking sound. Not a house settling kind of creak. Someone is walking in my apartment kind of creak. I just laid there, barely breathing, listening. Everything was silent for a minute. Then another creak. Closer this time. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it at my bedroom door. Nothing. The door was still closed. I told myself I was just imagining things, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. So I got up, checked every closet, every corner. Front door was locked. Windows were shut. I was about to go back to bed when I noticed something weird. There's a vent in the corner of my living room, one of those big floor vents. I've never really looked at it before, but now I could see that the metal grate was loose, like someone had pried it open and put it back. I knelt down, shined my flashlight inside, and saw something that made my stomach drop. A blanket, a half-empty water bottle, a crumpled fast food wrapper. Someone had been living in my walls. I just sat there, staring at it, not even breathing. It felt like my brain was short-circuiting, trying to put everything together. The missing food, the open window, the creaks in the night. I didn't sleep. I didn't even stay. I grabbed my keys, walked straight out the door, and crashed at my friend's place. I went back this morning. The vent closed again. I don't know what's worse, the fact that someone was living there, or the fact that he knows I found out. Update: I 29 quit my job after my boss took. A few weeks ago, I shared how my boss completely stole credit for a major project I had spent months working on. I didn't say anything at first, but when he presented my work to upper management as his own without even acknowledging my contributions, I was furious. I decided right then that I was done. I started quietly looking for new opportunities, and within 2 weeks, I had an offer: better pay, better title, and fully remote. I turned in my resignation, and let's just say, my boss did not take it well. First, he acted indifferent, like he didn't care. Then, 2 days before my last day, HR and upper management suddenly wanted to discuss my future at the company. I politely declined. That's when the real desperation kicked in. My boss, the same guy who had stolen my work, personally pulled me aside and tried to convince me to stay. He claimed I was an invaluable member of the team and that he always saw leadership potential in me. I asked him why, if that was the case, he had taken full credit for my project. He had no real answer, just mumbled something about teamwork. I left on good terms with my colleagues, but I made sure to let upper management know I was leaving. Now, a week into my new job, I got an email from HR at my old company saying they'd be open to negotiating a counteroffer if I reconsidered. Absolutely not. I love my new job, my manager actually respects me, and I get to work in my pajamas. No regrets. For anyone stuck in a toxic work environment, know your worth.